What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're jumping in with some Destiny 2 news and updates. So in this one, Bungie talk a little bit about items which have been disabled in the game, yet more glitches. So that's always fun and not necessarily surprising at all, but Bungie also talk about the future of Prismatic, some updates they've actually got in the pipeline, and Prismatic related content which will be rolling out throughout the course of the year. Additionally though, we'll round up some things from the content this week, more updates related to the content launch, plus we get a bit of a preview for some Solstice related things which are coming in August. There's also now a breakdown of every single Pathfinder objective in the game, some Pathfinder related glitches, and we have a handful of other items to round up in the video today. So as always guys, I hope you enjoy this one. If you do, a rating below really does help us out on the channel, but without further delay, let's get into it. And initially, Bungie say due to an issue, we've temporarily disabled the Hawkmoon exotic hand cannon in PvP, so clearly that one's been up to no good. It turns out if you use a kinetic holster mod and swap to your ghost, you can essentially wait to let the leg mod proc, and then it was causing a glitch where players could get the last shot back over and over again. So it kind of made Hawkmoon a bit broken, and understandably that has been disabled for the moment. I swear that's actually been a thing previously. Next up though, more updates from Bungie, and they say due to an issue, we've disabled rewards from Crucible private matches, and that was some kind of other exploit that was going on. Then this week we got the Season of Arrivals flashback, and there was an issue for players purchasing that bundle not actually receiving the rewards. But Bungie updated and said we've deployed a fix for the issue, and all Siegebreak armor bundles can now be purchased in the Eververse store, and players who purchased the bundle but didn't receive the rewards will have it fixed up at a later date. So there's that. I'm not sure why we keep having bugs with these Eververse bundles, although I wouldn't really know because I never purchased them. But additionally, Bungie said due to an issue where the Shattered Throne dungeon still has surges, we are swapping out the weekly dungeon rotator to Prophecy, and Shattered Throne will be featured again once the issue is resolved. Additionally, if you're a warlock and you're wondering why you're perhaps getting less reputation than you should, players have discovered that there is a bug where warlocks essentially get less reputation than all other classes. Not really sure why that would happen, but for the moment it hasn't actually been acknowledged by Bungie as a problem, although I imagine it probably will be now. So something to be aware of, and hopefully that'll get fixed up soon. One of the good components this week though with the reset is that of course Grandmaster Nightfalls have returned, and Scintillation is actually the featured Nightfall weapon. Up until this point, the weapon rotation had followed the order of the Nightfall weapons that we can see in Zavala's focusing menu, but Bungie seem to have diverged from that now, and we can indeed pick up the Scintillation, which actually has some pretty interesting options as a linear fusion rifle. I haven't got any good rolls just yet, but my buddy Dunnits, for example, got one with rewind rounds and bait and switch, and along with the Vice Stinger origin trait, that means you can essentially never reload the weapon. So there are some good options on Scintillation. I have a separate video breaking down all of the Nightfall weapons and the perk rolls for the season though, so that might be worth taking a look at. And otherwise, with us having double rewards, it's definitely worth jumping into the Nightfall this week if you can. Another quick mention here, but we got the final set of steps for Act 1 of Echoes. So the story for Echoes won't continue now until July 16th, which gives us a 3-week wait. Gotta say that time gating component of this doesn't necessarily feel good, although the story part of the quests actually is not very exciting whatsoever, I'd say. If anything, the story component for this week just started to potentially get a little bit interesting. We won't go into too many spoilers, but the unfortunate thing nonetheless is that Echoes content is more or less going to be on a pause now for the next couple of weeks. In my opinion, the best part of this week's quest was actually the new mission that we get to play, and the primary reason for that is that I think Nessus looks really cool, and we finally got to see some of the updated Nessus that Bungie showed off in the trailers. It does, however, just make me wish that Bungie had given us a sort of updated patrol space inside of Nessus that looked like this, even if it was a smaller zone, kind of like what we got in Season of the Haunted, where there were some objectives around that. I think it could have at least made some of the Echoes content more interesting. Give us your thoughts below though, and I'll keep you posted when we get more content in a couple of weeks' time. Moving on, Bungie actually spoke about Prismatic in an episode of Fireteam Chat with IGN, and so Ben Womack, the combat lead at Bungie, said, in terms of expanding on Prismatic, they do have plans to add new aspects and fragments. And Ben had said, we want to keep adding to Prismatic, it's something that's going to be just as important as adding to other subclasses, but he indicated that they would sort of focus on which parts of the game needs attention most, which I don't know if that suggests Bungie perhaps don't have immediate updates in the pipeline. It's not entirely clear clear, as in previous years, we have seen additional fragments at the very least rolling out in subsequent seasons and things like that. That's what we saw with Strand, for example. Either way, the ultimate plan is to continue adding to Prismatic, but he also indicated that there are internal discussions right now regarding Titan Prismatic, and he said, I'm not going to lie, we're talking about Titans a lot right now internally, and we're looking at that which is not just Prismatic at all, and weighing all of that together, we're definitely not done touching Prismatic. And so an indication, I suppose, that they are taking feedback on board regarding Titan Prismatic, which, generally speaking, is being viewed as probably the weakest of the three Prismatic classes. Although Ben Womack did say, if anything, we were actually a little surprised that we didn't have more kind of emergency updates regarding Prismatic. And he said that Bungie were prepared to have to do some real big emergencies right at the start, but things worked out a little smoother than they potentially thought. But it did say as well that their commitment to Prismatic and updates to subclasses extend beyond just immediate fixes. And he states the importance of creating evergreen content that remains relevant and engaging for years to come, stating that they'll be working on Prismatic for a long time, just like all of the other parts. And he said there's a phrase I like to use called evergreen when we're working in combat, as there is a focus on evergreen content. So not too many specifics right there by any means, but more Prismatic updates, potentially new elements like aspects and fragments, as well as possible buffs for things like the Titan are coming down the road, so give us your thoughts about that. Now though, we do have a final couple of things to mention, and firstly, Josh Hunt on Reddit pointed out that Pathfinders aren't completely random, and that there are 56 predetermined Pathfinders currently in the database. Bungie had previously said that the new cards are built using a mixture of authorial control and procedural generation, but in terms of actually while the game is running, it appears that it randomly picks through predetermined Pathfinder cards that Bungie have already made. And it also turns out that Pathfinder is essentially just fancy triumphs, and Josh Hunt said it uses the same system behind the scenes as triumphs, seasonal challenges, and guardian ranks. And there was even a bug recently where players saw a sort of lost sector focused Prismatic card, but it isn't actually a thing. What the game was doing was messing up and showing a bunch of triumphs for lost sectors through the Prismatic screen, which is pretty weird. And so no, we're probably not getting a lost sector focused Pathfinder, but Josh Hunt did list on his website all of the Pathfinder cards that actually exist. So if you're really into Pathfinder and you want to check out all of the different objectives that we're going to get as the weeks roll on, then I'll link that one down below. Our final mention though is a quick preview of some Solstice items. Firstly, Bungie Leaks shared the Solstice event pack. This is actually a bundle that can be claimed by purchasing the event card. And we can see the sparrow here, which is rather curious. It almost looks like an octopus or a squid on the front. It'll also have a shader and an exotic emote. And otherwise, this year for the first time, I think, Solstice will actually get its own memento. As far as we know, it should have this keepsake shader as the actual sort of featured cosmetic on it. So there's all of that, and we spoke about a new weapon, which is actually going to be a bow for Solstice this time around. But Solstice won't drop until, I believe, the beginning of August, so a little while yet. That'll actually be during Act 2 of the episode, so there are plenty of other things to come before we get to that. For today though, guys, that's what we have to speak about in this video, so as always, I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, a rating really does help us out down below. Also be sure to get subscribed and I can keep you posted with more Destiny content. But otherwise, for now, I appreciate you tuning in, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.